A selfish business model is a strategic business model, and that is something I'm going to try and prove to you in this conversation. Welcome to episode number 316 of Starting the Conversation. I'm your host, Alice Benham, and this is a topic I've been thinking about a lot recently, or in fact just over the last couple of years, I would say, because I'd say I've been on a really big journey in my business of realizing this exact thing, that having a business model that feels or seems on the surface a little bit selfish is actually incredibly strategic. I was inspired to create this episode because I was actually having a conversation with someone the other day. Someone was chatting about getting my strategic support, and one of the things that they were struggling with was knowing which business model to go for. They had the kind of, initial wireframe of an idea of what they wanted their business to be, but they weren't quite sure, what's this actually going to look like? How are we going to generate revenue? What are we going to sell? Like what's it actually going to look like? And that is a question so many of us will be familiar with, right? I don't think we just ask that question at the start of business, but every time that we are diversifying or evolving or pivoting or just looking to make some tweaks, often what we are looking at is our business model, the vehicle of our business, the real nuts and bolts of what is it that we actually do and sell. What I see so often, and I've definitely experienced this myself as well, is the overwhelm that can come from having so many options available to you. Especially these days, the amount of tech and resources that are available to all of us, there are so many different business models that we can be open to. And whilst we might assume that having lots of options is a positive and it's really exciting, what can also happen when we have too many options is that we get stuck, because we get in this phase of trying to make the right decision, trying to pick the right thing, not knowing what's right for us. And that inaction, I don't have to explain what inaction does. It doesn't do a lot. It doesn't grow a business. It doesn't create change. So when people are sat with this decision of, right, what do I want to do with my business model? Like, what do I actually want my business to be? Or what do I want to add? Or how do I want to make changes? I believe what is most valuable is for us to work out what it is that we're actually getting our business model to achieve. When I was speaking to this person who was trying to work out what they wanted to do with their business model, they had told me all of this clarity they had around what they wanted their business to do externally. They knew, what they wanted to be known for, what they wanted their reputation to be. They knew what they wanted, the impact of the business to be, the legacy, how they wanted to make a change. And that was really clear. But that on its own wasn't giving them enough of a checklist to help guide what their business model needed to look like. Because that clarity still left a lot of different options for business models on the table. And what I said to them was, well, what do you want your business to do for you? What do you want from the business? What's your vision for how the business looks for you long term? And you could see there was this real light bulb moment for them where they went, oh, I haven't thought about that before. And actually, as we then talked about what their answer to those questions might be, suddenly that checklist became so much more specific, and the business model that was right for them became much more evident. When we understand what we want our businesses to achieve, what we are creating is a checklist so that we can then ensure that the business model we create is going to tick off that checklist and align with that. I think I've said this phrase already of your business model being a vehicle, right? Your business model is a way of achieving something. We've got to reverse engineer it, right? And work out what do we want to achieve, and therefore what vehicle, what business model are we going to pick that best aligns with that? What happens when we have that clarity on what we're trying to achieve with our business model is that there are then less options for us around what our business model could be. That's a positive because it helps us make a decision. And then ultimately we can trust that we're building a business that's actually going to be what we want. So this concept, creating a selfish business model, really drills down to that second piece of clarity that I was talking about with that client around what do you want your business to do for you? You may have heard me talk before about the concept of having two whys. We have a why for us and a why for others. Or maybe an easier way to phrase it would be we have an internal why and an external why. 9 times out of 10, in fact, I'll say 9.99 times out of 10, when I talk to people about the why in their business, about the purpose that their business exists to achieve, about what it is that they want their business to actually do, where they have loads of clarity, and this is great, is the external why, right? That why for others around impact and who they want to help and how they want to be seen in their industry and what changes they want to make. And that clarity is invaluable, right? The external why, I would see it, is really valuable at making sure we have a business model that is commercial. We need to understand what we're actually trying to achieve externally in order to then build something that people actually want and need and connect with, buy from, etc. But that's only half of the why. The other half of the why, as I said, is the internal why. It's the why for us. And when I say a selfish business model, I am talking about a business model that aligns with the why for you. Now, I say this word selfish because I think this is what jumps into our mind when we think of this concept. And actually, I'm not making assumptions here. I've done this work for years and years and years. And I've seen enough people kind of slightly squirm at this concept of making their business work for them. I think especially as business owners, where what we start comes from a place of mission. We care about helping people, about making a difference. Maybe you started your business because you wanted to see a certain change in the world. It can feel a bit uncomfortable, a bit strange, a bit unnecessary to make it about us. But let me promise you, a business model that works for you is a business model that works for other people as well. And as someone who has seen this firsthand, not just in my business, but in people I work with as well, the better your business works for you, the better your business is going to work for other people. And also the better the business is going to feel for you to run. When we are only clear on that external why, on that checklist around who we want to help, what with, our impact, our legacy. As I said with that example of that person I was speaking to, there's often then still so many options that we can choose from in terms of what we sell, how we sell it, what we do, how we do it, the size of team we have, what our business looks like to run. But it's amazing to me how when we start to think about that internal why, everything gets more narrow and it's much more obvious exactly which decisions are right for us. That, I would say, is the first major benefit of getting clear on what you want your business to do for you. And I realize I haven't actually given a huge amount of context on that idea of your why for you, your internal why. If you're not familiar, what I'm talking about here is like, what do you want your day-to-day to look like? What kind of flexibility and freedom do you want from your business and your schedule? Financially, what do you want your business to do for you? What do you want to be able to extract? What do you want to be able to extract? What do you want to be able to take as the business owner? What excites you around what the business could look like, how it could operate? You get to decide these things. And actually, you don't just get a permission slip to have these answers, but you also get a permission slip to then build a business that directly aligns with them. As I was saying, the first real benefit of knowing what you want your business to do for you in being quote unquote selfish is that it's much easier to make decisions. When I am thinking about ideas in my business, when I am offered opportunities from other people, or when someone in my community asks me to do something and says, hey, I'd love if you made this. Often when I put that filter through my external checklist, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Because, my external why is all about helping business owners grow and simplifying strategy and helping people take action. So yeah, that course, that collaboration, that thing would do that. But it's only really when I think to my internal why does that decision become much easier to make. Because when I think about what is important to me and what I want from my business and what my boundaries and expectations are, immediately I can see which things are right for me and which things aren't going to be aligned. I used to think it was incredibly selfish to make decisions in that way. But the more that I've run my business, the more that I've seen that when my internal why helps shape my decisions, I make decisions so much more confidently. I make them quicker as well. And those decisions end up more often than not being the right thing for me. That brings me on to what I think is kind of the second real benefit of having this selfish business model, selfish being in quotation marks, because obviously, if you haven't got it by now, I don't really believe that it is selfish to think in this way, but I know that past me thought that. So I'm assuming maybe you might have those feelings about this as well, is that we ultimately then build businesses that feel more fulfilling and aligned for us. You deserve to enjoy running your business. If no one has said that to you recently, let me say that to you. You deserve to enjoy running your business. So often in business, I think we think that we're like martyrs to our businesses, right? That we have to kind of suffer in exchange for helping people or for growth. And don't get me wrong, right? There are seasons in business where there's trade-offs. There are times, especially when you're growing a business or in a particularly sticky phase, where it is hard behind the scenes. But even in those seasons, you still deserve to find pockets of fulfillment. You deserve to have a business that works for you. And your enjoyment in your business, let me tell you, is not just a fluffy extra. it's going to help your business grow. Because when you are operating at your best, when you are in a good place, you're going to bring your best to your business. I can see, even in my content, and it might be those micro things that I would only notice, but I can see the content that I created when I was in a really good place with my business, when things were on my terms, when my boundaries were being obeyed, when I felt really fulfilled, versus the content I made when the opposite of that was true. Because I can see a difference in how I've shown up in what I've brought to my business because it's been working for me. That's what I mean when I say when it works for you, it works for everyone else better. You will be a better team leader, service provider, etc. when you know what you want your business to do for you and it's doing those things. That concept, right, of we can't pour from an empty cup. The more fulfilled we are as business owners, the more fulfillment we can then bring to others. And the final point I want to touch on here is that when we run businesses that work for us, our business is ultimately more sustainable as well. You can run a business that doesn't work for you. You cannot do that for a very long period of time consistently. I speak from personal experience here. I have had many micro seasons in my 9+ years of running a business where, because my business wasn't working for me, I wasn't fulfilled, it wasn't on my terms, I hadn't thought about my needs, I was close to burnout. I wasn't necessarily close to burnout because I was working too much, but just what I was doing, how I was doing it, my business model wasn't meeting that internal why. When your business works for you, not only do you bring your best, but you can bring your best consistently and you can keep going. And that sustainability is a huge superpower in business. You know, business is not a sprint, it's a marathon. In fact, I feel like it's an ultra marathon, right? It does keep going. And our power as business owners is not what we can do in the short term. It's what we can do in the short term and continue to do consistently time and time again in the future. When we know what we want from our business and we shift our business model to really do that, I mean, it's just magic, as I talked about, right? It's like that sweet spot where we sit in the middle of that Venn diagram where we go, right, I'm building a business that really works for everyone else. I'm having an impact. This business is commercially viable. It works for everyone else, but I'm also building something that feels really fulfilling to me as well. To me, it almost feels like it puts the blinkers on. I can give a personal example here. I am very clear in my business. Part of my internal why is having a team structure that feels very lean and very simple. I know from lived experience and just knowing myself, I don't want to manage full-time employees. I don't want a big team. I don't want a big office space. That is not my why for me. That doesn't feel like it would work for me. I have friends who do want to go in that direction, who do run businesses with 20 team members and lots of complexity in that area. And it would be easy for me to see that and compare myself or think maybe I should be doing that, or, oh gosh, how bad that my business isn't there. But actually, because I know my internal why and I know that that's not for me, I can go, great for you, not for me. I know what is right for me in my business. And by knowing what's right for me, I make better decisions. My business is more fulfilling for me and it's more sustainable as well. I realize this episode has been a little bit of just a kind of conversational one, but this is a topic I feel incredibly passionate about, primarily because this is a journey I've been on. My past self, I cannot stress how much I used to think this kind of stuff was such an added extra, or at least I thought it was important to everyone else, but not to me. I'd be like, yeah, you make your business work for me, but I can't do that. You know, I don't deserve to do that, or it's not strategic to do that. You know, what is best for my business is for me to just not make it work for me and make it work for everyone else. But as I've said in this episode, when we do it that way, not only is it not enjoyable, but we don't do it sustainably. We don't bring our best. Our businesses suffer when it's not working for us. So that is my message for you today, is that a selfish business model, or at least a business model that maybe feels a bit selfish, is a good one. It's a strategic one. What this looks like in practice is, of course, different to every business, but, you know, thinking of things like, how does your schedule work in a way that works for you? How does the financial structure of your business serve you? How do your boundaries really come in to make sure that you are feeling fulfilled and working in a way that feels good on your terms? You have control. You get to decide how your business works for you and how it feels for you to run. But in order to do that, you've got to know what you want and then, of course, put in the action to make sure those changes happen. So my challenge for you today off the back of this episode is to think about that. Maybe you want to spend some time thinking about, right, what does that internal why look like? What do you want your business to do for you? Or maybe you've got that, or you've been thinking about it during this episode, and your next step is to think practically, as that person I was speaking with did, right? I know what I want. Now let me think about what this means for my business model. What decisions does that mean I need to make? What do I want to say yes to? What do I want to say no to? How can I tweak my business model to work better for me? I know we love to think in extremes. We're not making big changes here. Small tweaks tweaks that's just going to start to make your business work better for you. It's a forever journey making these changes. I don't think you ever reach a destination of it works for me, I'm done, but you can keep making these tweaks and then slowly start to see all these benefits I've talked about today. If this is something that resonates for you, a lot of the work that we do in my program on it is working out what do you want your business to do for you and for others. Actually, midway through this year, the doors are going to be opening again for you to join us for the rest of 2025. And one of the exercises we'll be focusing on in July is exactly this. Getting super clear on your internal why and your external why, giving them permission to have evolved since you last asked the questions, because that's why we have to come back to this work frequently in business. And then we're going to be thinking, right, what goals do you need to set to align your business with those whys? If you want to do this work in a really focused, structured, led environment where you're getting my expert support and the kind of accountability as well, do make sure that you are on the wait list for when the doors reopen in just a couple of months' time. They won't be open for long, so you want to make sure you're on that wait list, which I will link in the show notes wherever you're tuning into this episode. Speaking of wherever you're tuning in, make sure that you follow or subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video. I'll be back next Tuesday. Go and make your business work for you, okay? That's my challenge. Make it selfish, make it strategic.